my pleasure and honor to introduce Seth MacFarlane. I am not Seth MacFarlane. I know. Stresses me too. Thanks, guys, for having us. My name's Adrianne Palicki. I'm on a show called Friday Night Lights, and I'm actually from Toledo, Ohio. So, yeah. So I wanted to be really involved in Ohio and just spread the word about, just getting out there and voting. Are all you guys registered? Yes. All right. So this is a very exciting year for a lot of you because, not only is it a voting year, but it's, for a lot of you, the first time you'll ever get to vote. So that's pretty cool, especially this election. This election is going to go down in history, I think. I think it's going to go down in history where we elected the next John F. Kennedy. We elected the next Martin Luther King into our nation. So first and foremost, let me tell you a little bit about why I'm voting for Barack Obama. He's my guy because I lost faith in this America that we have a while ago. I got to vote in the last election. That was my first election, and I had high hopes for it. And I feel like we failed, and I feel like we've never been more separated as a nation. I didn't even think about my neighbor, for the longest time. I didn't care. The minute somebody said something on the news that I didn't care for, I'd turn it right off, When I got to see Barack Obama speak, for the first time in a long time, I was inspired. I was inspired to be an American, and I was inspired to go out there and try, and talk to my neighbor, and do something. Do you know that, especially you guys are affected in this particular election, because over the course of the last 8 years, college tuition has gone up 40%. You know that? You guys are paying for that. Barack Obama, he wants to make sure that all of you get a $4,000 tax credit per year per student, and all you got to do is give back to your community 100 hours. That's not a lot of work, right? $4,000 when you're paying tuition, especially as expensive as it is pretty exciting. Also, he wants to make sure that you guys are under your parents' health insurance to the age of 25, which I don't know if any of you are paying health insurance right now, but independent contractors like Cobra can be up to hundreds of dollars a month. So when you're paying off your college tuition and you're paying for gas and you're paying for your car insurance, the last thing you want to do is worry about health insurance. These are things to look into, and I know that, I'm glad you all are registered. The biggest thing that you can do is just get out there, volunteer, talk to your friends, get everybody you don't know registered. You have one more day. And most of all, just get the facts, get the issues, get into what is important for you, and just get out there and vote, and get everybody you know to vote. Jump in the car, make a party out of it, go get a beer afterwards, do whatever you have to do, just get out there and vote, you guys. And you can early vote, which is even cooler. So, now I'm going to introduce the real Seth MacFarlane from Family Guy. Here he is.
Everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, first of all, is there anyone here who is a McCain voter? Nobody here is a McCain voter. All right, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. There you go, bold man. Anyone here who's undecided? Okay, so a few undecideds. All right. Well,
I've sort of been back here. I voted for Bob.
You what?
I've sort of been back here.
You're undecided as well. So what? You're the only McCain guy. All right. Well, I admire your courage in standing up and admitting that. Well, it's good to be here with so many undergrads, because I will tell you are two things that the Republican Party is not lately, and that is young and smart. It's interesting. In 1968, when the 18-year-olds of that generation then 1980 rolled around, and those same 18-year-olds turned 30 and promptly elected Reagan president of the United States. And what this started was sort of this attempted, almost dumbing down of America over the next 3 decades. In the 1990s, Dan Quayle made a comment in which he called anyone who was essentially educated and had the wisdom to question authority a member of the cultural elite. Now, I read a comment in the press shortly before the vice presidential debate that said, Biden has to be careful not to appear too knowledgeable lest he risk alienating voters. Now, I don't know when it became a bad thing to be smart, but that has sort of become the fashionable thing that the opposition is putting forth. Sarah Palin the other night at the debate referred to Joe Biden as, quote, one of those New England politicians, which is Washington speak for a guy who is intelligent and educated and therefore worthy of our scorn. I'm from New England. I knew plenty of idiots. There's a line from Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged in which the heroine says to her childhood friend, I've always been unpopular in school, and now I've discovered the reason. They dislike me not because I do things badly, but because I do them well. They dislike me because I've always had the best grades in the class. I don't even have to study. I always get A's. Do you suppose I should try to get D's for a change and become the most popular girl in school? In response, her friend slaps her in the face. Now, the McCain camp seems to believe, from my perspective, that voters lack intelligence, and I noticed this in the way they try to persuade voters, not necessarily with facts, solutions, or sound judgment, but with this kind of, particularly in Sarah Palin, this kind of manufactured, folksy persona that I just don't buy. I know a lot of actors. I do some acting for Family Guy. I feel like I can tell when somebody is putting me on, and I just don't buy it. She winked so many times during that debate that I started to think, are we all going to get to make out with her afterwards? Because that would be an angry, passionate encounter. Can't say I wouldn't enjoy it. I, like the majority of Americans, according to the polls, was very impressed with Barack Obama's breadth of knowledge during the debate. What I got from McCain was this sort of repeated answer to most of the questions. We need to cut spending. We need to cut spending, with no clear agenda, no clear, concise indication of how that was to be accomplished. Obama's critics after the debate said he came off like a know-it-all. Now, I would like my president to know it all, personally. I think Americans are also tired of people like George Bush and John McCain taking advantage of them financially in favor of the rich because they think they're not smart enough to understand what's going on. Americans are not stupid. I know stupid. I created Family Guy. It's this thing that just keeps going on. It's increasingly considered negative to be smart or to be liberal. Liberal is a bad word. Reagan used to say a card-carrying liberal. Now, in the land of liberty, it seems odd that being liberal would be a bad thing. You hear Bill O'Reilly every night when he does his broadcast talking about those pinheads at Harvard. John McCain has his mind on other things. To me, that is making the rich richer. Now, in the 1950s, John McCain's economic policies would have made sense. They would have been smart. In the 1950s, if you were a grocery store owner, or you owned the hardware store or the laundromat in your town, you were one of the wealthy people. You were one of the wealthy people in town in the 50s if you owned a small business. And that's no longer the case, because since then, everything has kind of gone like this, and H.G. Wells and Mark Twain predicted this. Everything's kind of gone like that. So you now have 1% of the population controlling, and that's the wealthiest 1% of the